Similar field of view, different format, and how my recently purchased Canon lenses line up with the Micro Four Thirds lenses I already own. I wanted to make this video about how my recent Canon lens purchases sit alongside the Micro Four Thirds lenses I already own. This isn't a format war or a reinvention story. It's about continuity, intent, and building a system that reflects how I already work. I don't think in sensor sizes. I think in field of view, working distance, and how a lens behaves when there's a real person in front of the camera. That thinking started on Micro Four Thirds, and it carries directly into how I'm using my Canon gear now. As you all know, Micro Four Thirds has a 2x crop factor. That makes the math simple, but more importantly, it makes intent visible. A 25mm on Micro Four Thirds trains your eye for a 50mm perspective, and a 17mm trains your eye for a 35mm view, and over time, those perspectives become instinctive. So when I'm talking about using full frame, I'm not learning focal lengths. I'm removing the translation step. I already know where to stand, how far I want to be from the subject, and how the background behaves. The lenses have changed, but the spatial logic hasn't. On Micro Four Thirds, the Panasonic 10-25 f1.7 and the Panasonic Leica 25-51.7 form the backbone of my work. Together they covered an effective full frame equivalent range of roughly 20 to 100mm. That pairing taught me a lot. One lens lived wider, one lens lived tighter. The overlap at 50mm, which is deliberate because that's where interviews and dialogue tend to sit. In practice, those two lenses behave like a single system split in half. On the Canon, the RF 24-105 f2.8 consolidates the idea into one lens. The range is almost identical in real-world use. From a professional standpoint, that matters. It reduces lens changes, keeps rigs balanced, and speeds up decision making. The framing intent is the same, just delivered more efficiently. The Panasonic 50-200 on Micro Four Thirds is effectively a 100 to 400mm full frame equivalent. On paper that sounds very different to the Canon RF 70-200 f2.8, but in practice the role it played was more specific. I used the 50-200 for compression, distance and control, not for extreme reach. It let me step back, flatten space and isolate a subject without being intrusive. The Canon 70-200 plays a similar role, even though the numbers don't line up exactly. The working distance I care about lives in that 70 to 200 range. The compression feels familiar, the intent is identical. What's changed is that the lens now sits in a more standard cinema and broadcast context, where the focal range is expected and supported. The Olympus Pro 17mm f1.2 on Micro Four Thirds was always about control. With a full frame equivalent field of view of around 34mm, it lived in the sweet spot where scenes feel grounded and natural. The Canon 35mm VCM Prime is a direct continuation of that role. Same perspective, same working distance, same balance between subject and environment. This is the lens I reach for when I want movement to feel calm and intentional, whether the camera is locked off or on a gimbal. On Micro Four Thirds, the Panasonic Leica 42.5mm was my portrait lens. At 85mm full frame equivalent, it gave me compression, intimacy, and a clear separation between subject and background. The Canon 85mm VCM Prime takes over that role cleanly. I stand in the same place, I frame the same way. The difference isn't perspective, it's latitude. The full frame sensor gives me more flexibility, but the discipline stays the same. The Canon RF 50mm VCM now sits as a bridge lens. It carried forward that role. It's a focal length I trust most for interviews, dialogue, and observational work. It behaves consistently on a gimbal, balances well, and delivers a look that doesn't distract from performance. What's changed is system clarity. Where the Olympus and Voigtländer lenses once filled a cine role by necessity, the Canon CN R cinema primes now formally take that place on Canon cameras. The RF 50mm VCM becomes a hybrid workhorse, while the CNR lenses define the dedicated narrative and controlled production standard. Zooms are about efficiency. They tend to live on sticks, in documentary situations, and in reactive shooting where speed matters. Primes are about intention. They live on gimbals, in controlled interviews, and in narrative work where balance, consistency, and repeatability are essential. That division existed in my Micro Four Thirds workflow, even though it wasn't formal. It's now explicit. The Canon RF VCM primes cover interviews and movement. The CNR cinema primes handle dedicated cine work. The zooms do the heavy lifting where coverage is the priority. Splitting focal ranges across two cameras has always mattered to me. One camera wider, one camera tighter. Clean cuts, consistent perspective. That logic started with the 10-25 and 25-50 pairing on Micro Four Thirds. It continues with the Canon zooms and primes. Nothing about how I build interviews has changed. Looking forward, this setup is about consolidation, not escalation. Every Canon lens I now own maps directly to the focal length I already understand on Micro Four Thirds. Same field of view, same working distance, same visual intent. The upgrade isn't about changing how I see. It's about headroom, robustness, and professional clarity. The discipline came first, the tools followed. Thanks for watching.